welcome back to Phil at the Movies. I'm your host, Phil Walsh, and this is episode number 123 of this ongoing podcast that is always for the love of movies. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in each Friday and hearing or watching what I have to say on all things movies and cinema related. To those who have been with this show from the very beginning, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And frankly, thank you to everyone who tunes in and listens to this show each and every week. To those who are newcomers, perhaps, welcome aboard. We're on a cinematic journey here on this podcast. But as I've said time and again, your support, your friendship means the world to me. And again, this has all been for the love of movies, and I've just been overwhelmed, frankly, by the support and the appreciation for this show. So again, thank you, and thank you. Now, today I'm going to be talking about a recently released film, and by recently released, I mean it came out just last Friday, and it is from acclaimed and sometimes polarizing director M. Night Shyamalan. He's famous for such films as The Sixth Sense, Signs, The Village, The Visit. He's quite an accomplished director and is noted for his plot turns and surprising twists in a number of his films, most famously, perhaps, with The Sixth Sense. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the film, though I'm guessing if you are listening to this show, you've no doubt seen The Sixth Sense and are aware of the surprise twist with Bruce Willis's character being, in fact, dead in the film. But that's, again, what really sort of made his name in the industry, and certainly made him a sort of a master storyteller when it came to things like shocking twists and plot devices in thrillers and horror films. And he's back at it again with his new film Trap, which stars Josh Hartnett. And I have to say right off the top, before I get into the plot of the film, I had a great time with this movie. It certainly has had some, I don't want to say, extreme polarizing responses, but it's an M. Night Shyamalan film, so you kind of know what you're going to expect going into the film. You're going to have a really quirky and unique dialogue, which only he is able to get away with, and has the actors work within such a delicious relish and whatnot. But in addition to that, of course, there's going to be some twists, and there's going to be some surprises along the way. So the plot of the film involves this father taking his daughter, again, the father played by Josh Hartnett, and he is taking his daughter to a concert. And the pop star is sort of a hybrid, if you will, of Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift. Her name is Lady Raven in the movie, but sort of draws on a lot of the sensations of those real life performers, if you will. So they go to a concert and having a great time and whatnot, and then he's sort of alarmed by the police presence that is on site at the arena, and the FBI is showing up, and he's a little disturbed by it, to say the very least. And he finds an employee at the arena, and he happens to be a wealth of information, and he informs him that there is a tip that has been given to the police and the FBI regarding a notorious and elusive serial killer in the area known as the Butcher. And the police have received a tip that somehow this person is going to be at the concert that particular day, and they've set a trap for the serial killer, and they're using the concert more or less as a giant mouse trap, if you will, to catch him. Well, of course, right off the bat, the serial killer, the Butcher, is Josh Hartnett's character, and so the first half of the film really is this sort of intricate cat and mouse game with him trying to stay one step ahead of the police and the FBI while trying to maintain a front with his daughter. And I have to say, Josh Hartnett is, I think it's fair to say, he's really an underrated actor. He received a lot of acclaim last year for a film which, if you've listened to the show, I'm a big fan of Oppenheimer. He was in that film. And really, certainly held his own against, the greats of Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. But he's really having a ball in this particular film, because it's a movie that takes itself seriously, but not too seriously. I wouldn't go out say it's outright campy or satirical, but there's an element of fun in this film, even though you're sort of dealing with this cat and mouse game with the police and the FBI trying to catch a serial killer. But much of the first act is really Hartnett trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to elude the authorities? And he goes through elaborate measures with trying to make his exit, because he knows that the police and FBI are questioning practically everybody in the arena, and no one's going to get out without passing through intense security. And he, of course, with him, knowing that they're looking for the butcher, it's only a matter of time before he slips up. But long story short, he stages a number of elaborate situations, if you will, again, while sort of using the fact that he's at a concert with his daughter as a cover, and then they end up sort of crossing paths with the pop star, and she ends up getting on stage, and he sort of is using her as a way to get out of the arena without being noticed by the police. And ultimately, once it sort of leaves the concert venue, and I've seen mixed reactions, I guess, to this sort of the third act. I had a fun time with it. Is it a little choppy in places? Sure, but it's one of those movies where you just have fun with it because it's such an absurd. It's such an absurd setup. I mean, first off, the concert's taking place in the middle of the afternoon, which generally does not happen. I'm not saying it's a rarity, but it's sort of more of a outside the norm. So you've got a concert happening in the middle of the afternoon, which is sort of hilarious, and then sort of his ability to sort of navigate every situation, grabbing key cards and walkie-talkies, and acting very very discreet is really hilarious to watch. And Hartnett carries this film. I mean, the rest of the cast is fine and does a great job, but he's what anchors this film. And I think there's sort of that dad energy that he brings to the character, while at the same time being a serial killer who's trying to conceal his identity. It kind of makes for a fun and amusing time. Again, M. Night Shyamalan, as I said, has sort of been I want to say outright criticized, but a lot of times his more recent films have definitely generated some polarizing takes. I don't see this one generating quite the extreme reaction. The film did relatively well last weekend at the box office, and seems to be working so far with the majority of audiences. Again, I was sort of taken by this film with the unique premise of it, the idea of a concert venue being a trap used by the FBI to capture a serial killer. And it's one of these films where, even though it's rated PG-13, there's sort of this interesting level of menace in the film. It's not like an in-your-face type of a horror film, or I wouldn't even call this film a horror film. It's more of a sort of a lighthearted thriller in some ways. Again, not that that's a bad thing, but it's definitely, if you're a hardcore fan of the genre, you will likely be disappointed, because this is not a blood and guts film. It's not a psychological study like Longlegs was from last month, but it's entertaining. That's really the biggest thing. I just had a fun time with this movie, and there's sort of been this interesting reaction. Again, social media is the great place to discover all of these unique takes, if you will. But a lot of times people sort of sort of put you in this put boxes out where you must either love something to the max, or you must hate it to the extreme. And I think that's kind of disingenuous, because ultimately, not every film is going to be a masterpiece, and not every film is going to be a flop. There's sort of that middle ground, and I kind of wish we would get back into that sort of mindset where we don't have to immediately declare, oh, this is the worst thing in the world, or this is the best thing in the world, but kind of just say, yeah, this was a fun movie. I had a great time with it. I mean, again, the world did not spin in another direction. I mean, this wasn't, for everyone who's listened to a couple of recent episodes, I mean, this wasn't Longlegs for me, to say the very least. But then again, not every film in this genre could be Longlegs, just as not every film could be Oppenheimer, if you will. I mean, sometimes it's okay to have just a sort of a run-of-the-mill good time at the movies. And again, that's not a bad thing. And I think we've sort of gotten into this mentality where it's like, oh my gosh, if you just say, oh, it was fun, that means you're somehow putting a movie down, and nothing could be farther from the truth. I had a fun time with this movie. I actually laughed more than I thought I would, because even though the trailer sort of gives a little hints to the humor of it, the movie was actually quite hysterical, and I found myself out busting a gut in the theater at some of the moments, because it's just sort of the absurd nature of what's going on. And again, that's really a testament to Josh Hartnett and his portrayal, but also the writing. I mean, M. Night Shyamalan is noted for his writing and sort of his unique turn of phrase with some of his dialogue. It's a very much his own style, and it doesn't work with everybody, and it's certainly not every actor could pull it off. But Josh Hartnett fits quite well, I think, in the world of M. Night Shyamalan, and this film was just perfect. It was a fun time, and it's sort of a unique concept, if you will. Like I said, a concert venue being used as a trap to catch a serial killer, and I mean that's it. It just sort of runs with it there. I mean, there's a little bit of I guess you might even say a psychological study sort of inserted into it, and I've seen criticisms that kind of is where it really fell apart for people. I didn't have an issue with it. I think it kind of all tied together. Like I said, it really comes down to whether you buy into Hartnett's performance, and for me, he made the film work. He was earnest when he needed to be. He was sort of injecting dad humor when it was necessary. He was downright intense, and frankly sort of threaded that line between being kind of uber serious but with a wink and a nod, and yet also being kind of creepy and menacing. It really worked. He played a psychopath with remarkable flourish, and so it was good to see him in this light. He really is the anchor of the film. But again, just sort of the whole concept of it was a unique way to go. So I would recommend this film. It's probably not going to work for everyone, but at the end of the day, for me, this was just a fun movie. And a lot of times I think we sort of get into that mentality where it's like, oh, okay, we have to immediately declare something the greatest thing since sliced bread, or we have to call it horrible and bury it in the backyard. And I think that just doesn't work today. I mean, I know we sort of always have to have that instant take, but I think it's all right to just say a movie was a good time, and I enjoyed it while I was watching it, and life moves on, and that's sort of how I feel when it comes to the movie Trap. I wasn't expecting my mind to be blown, if you will, but I had a great time with it, and ultimately that's what this is all about. I mean, that's why I love going to the movies. Is why I love talking about films, because that's the whole hope. You want something to be entertaining. You want to enjoy your 2 hours or so in change at a theater, and nobody goes into a film saying, "Oh, I hope this film is a piece of crap." I mean, you want a film to be enjoyable. You want to sort of get that worthwhile experience. And again, I think sometimes we build up expectations so high that they can never be reached or even mastered. But again, sometimes I think just sort of enjoying a movie for what it is can be as worthwhile as anything else. And that was how I took this particular film. Kind of went off at a little bit of a rant here. Well, maybe it wasn't really a rant, more some thoughts that have been on my mind lately as it relates to sort of instant takes and whether or not something is immediately good or immediately horrible. There's always that sort of that famous middle ground that, of course, on social media does not always exist. But no, Trap, I had a great time with it. It's a wild ride. It's an M. Night Shyamalan film, so there is going to be a lot of twists and turns and unique plot devices. And again, it's sort of whether you buy into it at the start, and I ultimately did. And again, by the end of it, I had a great time with it. So I would recommend this film. Let me know in the comments below, have you seen this film? What did you think of Trap? Did it live up to your expectations, or were you let down and disappointed? But for me, it was was a nice return to form in a lot of ways for M. Night Shyamalan. It actually brought to mind a film of his, The Visit, which I enjoy a great deal. It's very much in that particular wheelhouse. So if you're a fan of The Visit, I think you'll enjoy Trap as well. But that does it for me today. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in each week and hearing what I have to say on movies. I'll be back next week. And yes, we will do this all over again for the love of movies.